Casey, welcome. Good to have you.
Hi, Brian. Happy to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, good to catch up again. I know we got introduced by our mutual friend Andy a few months ago and got to chat. So good to have you on the podcast to
Yeah, I'm
share your
excited to have
journey.
this conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let's start off here because it's always, folks that don't know you, don't know kind of your background or anything. I actually saw this. Jesse Itzler, who I follow, posted this on LinkedIn literally just like 15 minutes ago. I saw. So it actually was a good jump off point of like, how do you introduce yourself? You don't know someone. So, like, imagine you were going to, an event there in Columbus, a networking event. What's your like 30-second like intro for Casey?
Yeah, I love to help people get paid well for their excellence.
Mm,
You're excellent at what you do. If you deliver excellent products and services to your customers, you got to be paid like you're excellent, not like you're good, not like you're mediocre. And too many small businesses and medium-sized privately held companies out there are being paid like they're mediocre for excellent work, and it fires me up. So our
yeah.
company is really all around addressing that problem of underpricing, fear-based pricing, unnecessary discounting, and getting more money in your pocket.
I love that. What do you get when you respond like that, like in the networking event?
Yeah.
Like, what's the typical like next question you get?
I think just I've tried a few different options or versions of this elevator pitch over the years, as you can imagine. I'm not certain I've landed on the right one because there still is a lot of confusion, and I
Yeah,
think less confusion about anything I said and more confusion for them trying to link that to something they understand that exists in the world. So it's like, so what are you? Like, are you a are you doing Excel analysis on my pricing? Are you like, they don't know what that means. So a
yeah,
lot of times the next question is like, how? How do you help make sure
yeah.
companies can address this issue of underpricing? And then I kind of talk about how we provide those services. So I think, if you are in a category that does not make any sense in your customers' minds before they, like in the marketing speak, they would say customers are not problem aware or solution aware, right? So I start talking about a solution to a problem they don't know they have, or if they know they have it, they don't think a solution exists. So sometimes that's really the next question is like, help me understand how you do that.
Yeah. Well, that's not a bad thing though, right? It opens the door, especially if they're curious. You have that curiosity gap a little bit, and then you get
Yep.
to instead of like whatever insert. I'm a whatever.
Yeah, if you're like an insurance broker, people know what that means or they have an idea of what that means to them. And so then there's not necessarily a natural follow-up question in the same way there is if you kind of pique their interest with something they've never quite heard of before.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure.
Where did so the pricing stuff? 'Cause I know we chatted about this briefly last time we talked, but like, when did the jump happen for you of like pricing is going to be this is
My
going to be
thing.
the thing you're going to build your business around?
I have been calling myself a pricing geek for a couple decades now. And when did that all start? I would say so. I started my career as an engineer. I'm a chemical engineer by training. I started in the factories and in the labs doing pretty traditional manufacturing and R&D engineering type work. But I loved people and I loved to talk and I loved, the intrigue of the business side of business. And I was really far away from that. So I entered a program that GE was really investing in heavily at that time called Six Sigma, which everybody's heard of by today. But at those times, it was a really brand new program. I became an early Six Sigma black belt for GE, which was a rotational program. And I did rotations in a few different departments in the business, but landed in a rotation in pricing and just I didn't know anything about it really. I had taken an econ class, so I understood this idea of the demand curve and the more you charge, the less you sell, the less you charge, the more you sell. Like really straightforward, pretty frankly rudimentary and naive understanding of pricing in the real world. And once I did that rotation and I was in negotiation processes with our sales team, with our customers, seeing how procurement works, seeing like how the sausage is made in terms of pricing decisions, pricing negotiations, pricing objections and handling of those objections, I just got really fascinated because it's not nearly this very simple mathematical relationship that I had learned about in an econ class. It was a lot more nuanced and gray. There's a lot more psychology, a lot more
Yeah.
emotion. It's like I've compared pricing a lot to like in a B2B negotiated space, more like a game of poker.
Mm.
Everybody's bluffing, everybody's looking at their hand, guessing at the strength of their opponent's hand. Buyers are trying to hide how much they're willing to pay, sellers trying to hide how little they're willing to accept. just seeing that bluff play out in rooms and being part of some of those negotiation processes, I was like, this is it for me. This is so fun. It's art and science. It's people and process. It's data and psychology. And I've been hooked for 25 years and haven't considered a career change in all that time.
I love that. Well, when you obviously did this full time in terms of your own business, you left, and I know you're, I think, in another organization, but then started your business. Tell me that
That's right.
jump story. And for someone that I think when we talked last time, I'm now full time in my business. Like I made the jump just recently after kind of building some.
Congratulations.
Thank you
I'm
very
so
much.
pumped for you.
So last time we talked, I was kind of I was teetering, I was about there. So give me your jump story of how you made the leap full time.
Sure. Well, I have an older brother. So I was raised below the poverty line, wrong side of the tracks. Never homeless, never hungry, but close on both accounts. So no entrepreneurs in my family, no business experience, exposure. And so it never had dawned on me ever once that I would have my own company. I mean, in my parents' mind, the fact that I went to college, got a degree, and got a good job at a Fortune 500 company,
Yeah.
like to them, I was set.
That's a lot.
That was
You won a
handled.
lot
And in
of.
my parents' generation, you'd get a job and stay there for your whole career and retire from there.
Yeah.
And that was, so that was what they had envisioned for me and all I had really envisioned for myself. I hadn't thought very much beyond get that first good job. Um, but my older brother had gotten dissatisfied with the kind of that grind and had become an entrepreneur a few years earlier. He had bought a business, grew that and sold it, and then he started his own business and he was buying into another business. So he had a number of different entrepreneurial endeavors and involved that he was involved in, and he started like getting in my ear, like, you should start a business, you should do it, and I think like entrepreneurs are like a cult, right? Like we want everybody, once you're an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
you're like, you got to do it, man, it's so great. So I'm so pumped you made the leap and you're part of the group.
Yeah.
So he just kind of got in my head eventually, like, maybe I could do it, maybe, but I was a single mom, two little girls, no financial safety net. I had a really good job, a corporate, a credit card, a company car, really nice benefits. But I was just really dissatisfied over time with what I saw as pretty, limited decision making. It was a publicly traded company, which means every quarter by quarter by quarter, we had to report earnings to Wall Street, which means that sometimes we were doing really bad decision making that was really going to screw up the future to make sure we could hit this quarter. Everything was just very short term decision making, which led to a lot of bad decisions. And I had, I think, 3 positions open above me, meaning my boss's position was open, that person's boss's, so it was like no one between me and the CEO. I was getting absolutely no guidance, leadership, support. I was working myself to the bone. I was just sick of the bureaucracy and headaches and politics of corporate America. And I kind of got to a point of misery. I was working a million hours and I thought, there's got to be, there's a lot of small businesses in this country. I'm at least as smart and hardworking as some of those people. Maybe I could give this a go. And I would, it's a little unsexy to say this, but it was more or less running from rather than running to initially. It was like, I don't want what I have. And I don't want to go get other corporate gig. I think I want to try this on my own. And this is adorable to me now. I thought it would give me more time with my kids and more freedom and flexibility and certainly in some ways, you certainly have some more freedom and flexibility, but it almost goes from going from having one boss to all the bosses, because all your customers are your bosses now, all your employees are your bosses. So I had a really naive view of the world of entrepreneurship when I made the leap, but that's kind of really the story there.
But you would never go back to corporate.
No, absolutely not. Is on my worst day as an entrepreneur, it's still better than, especially towards the end, your average day being a cog in a giant wheel, feeling so, in my case, just feeling like I could do the best job possible because I've always had a really high standard of excellence for my work. I could do absolutely world-class, excellent work and it would make virtually no difference really. Like, maybe the share price on our stock would go up by 2 cents or something. It's so huge of an organization, it was hard to make an impact and see the impact of that work. So no, and the flexibility and the autonomy. The first few years were really rough, and everybody's got their entrepreneurial journey. There's nothing smooth about it. It looks 15 years later like it was all up and to the right, but it was a lot messier than that early. But at this point, just certainly there's the financial benefits of having your own business, but also the freedom, the flexibility, the autonomy, the pride, kind of forging your own path, all that I wouldn't trade
Hmm.
for a million
All right.
years.
So this is a little self-serving, but everyone else out there that's early in their journey. So like the first 6 to 12 months, if you had to go back, anything you would do again, anything if you have a redo would, and I know a lot of it would led you to a successful business today. So maybe it was worth it, but just kind of thinking
Yeah,
abstractly here.
I stubbed my toe for sure. I made plenty of mistakes. I don't know that it's avoidable. Maybe not. So I'll say the answer that comes to mind, and maybe it's like, okay, that's hard. That's hard advice to take. If I were to go back to 2010, Casey, I would say pick a narrower lane sooner and be more confident to turn down work that isn't a good fit for that lane. The whole niche down idea is not, I'm not the first to say that, but like it's hard early on to stick to your guns around your lane, either the products and services you sell or the customers you serve or both, because early days you're just like, if anybody will give me a check, yes, I will take it. Yes, I can do that, and especially, I mean, in my case, like I said, I was a single mom. I had two little girls, no family resource, no one I could turn to if everything went to pot. So I was really, every single customer that said yes to me, I was a yes to them. And I ended up working on some stuff that, was kind of outside my lane. And I don't think I produced absolute excellence. And that did not sit well with me. And then I think there were other times it was inside my lane, but it was for a customer that I knew I should have said no to. Sometimes the core values mismatch, or just like it's just not a match. And I was too desperate early on to stick to my guns on that. And like I said, I don't know if that's an avoidable thing. I mean, maybe that's just whatever, you have to learn that lesson the hard way a little bit, because I knew that advice. And I did over time. I got narrower and narrower and clearer on who our ideal customer is and what we do and where we can be truly world class. And we don't ever, I mean, and haven't for years and years now, done anything that is outside that very, very specific. I call it the blue part of our flame. We stay in the blue part of our flame. We can still do good work kind of outside that, but I don't want to do good work. I don't even want to do great work. I want to do world class work, and we want to do it with the right partners. And so that's the one thing that I think I struggle with maybe the most early on.
Well, and I think that's the important part. What I built probably on the side for 18 months, maybe a little bit more. And I think that's something maybe the lesson I learned a few years prior to that was like, try to get some clients, try to learn, see what it's about, see what you like, what you don't like. And maybe you get closer to what you're saying, that kind of euphoria of like the top client, the most qualified for what you want to do a little quicker. But yeah, I think we all go through that. Like they're cash, they're paying it. It's like,
Yeah, right.
Let's go.
Right. Yeah, that next dollar. And it's interesting, and I don't want to jump again because I know we're going to talk about pricing later on in the segment, but one of the things that sometimes gets in the road for people around the confidence to hold the line on price is I almost call it like the PTSD of the early days of being a business founder, where every deal is so sacred. You don't want to lose a single solitary deal at all. And that can cause even more mature businesses who have a right to have the confidence to kind of hold the line on their value will sometimes still really discount because the founder still got some of that, like, I can't lose any deals, because they remember the early days of, writing checks from their personal account to cover payroll or whatever. So
yeah. And they think discounting is the way to get there, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Yeah.
But that's actually a good segue. So let's jump into rapid fire.
Okay.
And let's jump into rapid fire here. 5 questions. These aren't technically rapid fire. We can expel on these a little bit more or expand on them. All right, first one. Here we go. What would you write on a Post-it note to the younger generation for them to see every day?
Goodness. Post-its, short. Work hard, love yourself.
Work hard, love yourself. Why'd you choose those?
Yeah, I don't know. They're just both so darn important. I think some people veered, and I would say my generation and earlier generations had been too much of a slave to work, I think. I think the younger generations have done a better job of 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 balance and of looking at looking at life through a more holistic lens than just like how do I make money, which I think is overall really positive. But I think it's really that can be over ascribed, and we can kind of move away from the need to like really really grind and really crank. I think there's a lot of benefits to grinding that aren't just monetary success. I think, and when you're young and you have the energy for it, it's the
Yeah.
time to grind. I think there's an incredible amount of self discovery and self worth that can be excavated through the process of really grinding and working hard. I think it's got value beyond the results it produces externally. But never lose track of self care, self love, self grace. Give yourself grace. That's,
Yeah.
to me, it's like a balance. And, I'm turning 50 this year. So maybe I'm getting a little waxing a little philosophical here, but the need to
Yeah.
do both really well, especially for a young person. Well, I don't know, especially for young people, especially for old people, especially for everyone in between, I think is, that's why I put that on the post-it. And given more time to think about it, I'd probably come up with something more sage, but for now, that's what
No,
I got.
I like that. I like that. It came from your meditation retreat. You
Yeah.
had, but what's interesting, and tell me if you agree with this or not, but just as you're saying it, because I like that is, when we think of work, and I think you and I, right? We probably growing up, you think of work as like, yep, get there 9 to 5, grind, whatever. But actually, if I added, I'm thinking about now, it's like work hard to love yourself. If you added a 2 in between that,
Yeah.
it's like if you love yourself, it actually makes your work better.
Yeah.
It makes you more confident in your work, right? It makes you work on the things that fill you up and stop saying yes to things that don't. So in a way, like work hard to love yourself is actually, I know it was work hard, period, love yourself. But
Yeah.
anyways, I don't know if you agree with
The
that. I just,
what's interesting about that framing is the way I hear that almost is like be intentional about how you
yeah,
love yourself. And I think intentionality is like if I'm already revising the post-it note, just be intentional. Be
yeah,
intentional about everything. Be intentional about how you work, be intentional about the how you rest, be intentional how you care for others in your life, be intentional, about your physical well-being. Yeah. I mean, so the work hard to love yourself introduces an aspect of an intentionality in there that I like. So
yeah.
yeah, we can keep playing with that,
All right.
offline.
So yeah,
Make
not so
we'll,
much
we'll
rapid
perfect
fire.
our post-it motivational note game.
No, that's all right. That wasn't really rapid fire, but
No,
that
I'll
was
try
more
to do
like a
faster.
loading a musket in the 1800s. But here we go. What's your go-to mantra or reminder when things get hard?
Uh, I'm a meditator, as you know. You mentioned my meditation retreat, which we were talking about before we hit record. So meditation is really helpful for me, and a lot of times, my teacher in meditation, I meditate on alignment, and I breathe in here, and I breathe out yes. So here is I'm present to this present moment. Yes, as I accept this moment, I accept it as it is. I don't try to change it. I don't try to fix it. I don't try to be different or feel different. I'm here. Yes. And so that is a really helpful frame for me when I'm really struggling. In work specifically, when I get really stressed out about something not going well, or I mean, something's really got me really wrapped around the axle at work. I will remind myself. I have a post-it note on my uh, monitor that says everybody's breathing, nobody's bleeding, which is like just my reminder that the work we do is important. We care about the quality of our work, but it's not life or death. There are
Yeah.
people whose jobs are life or death. That is not ours. And so it's a reminder to me to just kind of keep perspective about how serious. I think it's important to take your work seriously and do a great job, and to care about your quality, but not to just lose yourself and lose your equanimity when something goes, awry.
Hmm. That's a good point. All right, let's dig down really deep here. Let's see what we got. What's one commitment you made to yourself this year?
Meditate every day.
And what does that look like? Can you give any, or maybe any, for them that wants to start meditating, any quick tip on how they should start?
One quick tip I would give to anybody who's meditating for the first time, or maybe the 17th time they've tried it, because they've tried it a whole bunch of times and struggle with it, is to not expect yourself not to think while you meditate. I think meditation has a bit of a marketing problem where people think you're just going to sit and you're going to zen out, and it's going to be
Yeah.
perfectly blank in there, and it's going to be some kind of, blissed out, zened out experience. And that is not, in my experience, how meditation is. It's not how it works. It's not how human beings are wired. So don't expect yourself not to think things, and give yourself some grace. If you sit down for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and you breathe and you try to bring up, your attention to the present moment, you did it right. There's no doing meditation wrong, even if the whole time your mind raced like crazy. So just give yourself some grace. Just try over and over again to bring attention to the present moment. If your mind wanders 400 times in 15 minutes, well, that was 400 reps you got getting
Yeah.
better at bringing your attention to the present moment.
Yeah. It's more the consistency, I'm assuming. You just got to show up. All right. Number 4. Here we go. When was the last time you wanted to give up but didn't?
I mean, all the time, I'm sad to say. Yeah, I mean, things get tough. I guess last year had a that's a kind of a long story. I'm trying to think about how to be quick about this. Yeah, I mean, the short answer, all the time. All
This
the
is a
time,
long-form
things
podcast.
get
Take your
tough,
time.
and you
Take your
get
time.
sort of like beat up, and you give yourself a second to lick your wounds and say, I want to quit. I don't want to do this. I don't want to work on this. I don't want to fix this again. I don't want to address it. And then, dust yourself off and get after it. So, I mean, probably, several times this year already, for sure. I mean, it's little things, you're like, ugh, I don't want to do this. And then you do it anyway. That's how life is.
Do you battle a lot of like self-doubt or the inner demons, we can call them, or anything like that?
Fewer than I used to. I mean, I think when I started out, I had a lot of imposter syndrome. And some of that is, I mean, when I started out as an engineer at GE, I didn't know how to use the right forks at work dinners. I didn't wear the right, business casual. I didn't really know what that meant. So like feel like I've been catching up to the rich kids since I, went to college, and, things that other people seem to know and intuit and have a frame for, I didn't know, and I didn't intuit, and I didn't have a frame for. So imposter syndrome was a really big deal in my, in my early career. And then once I started my company, it was still an issue, because I didn't know. The only entrepreneur I knew was my brother, and he was, kind of feeling his way around in the dark too, although he's been, very successful. I just didn't know if I belonged, and I didn't. And I started the company as a consultant, so I'm selling expertise, and I kind of felt a little bit like a fraud. Like, I'm not sure I have enough expertise to help people. So that was a really big deal early on. I think now I struggle with that far less. I mean, every once in a while I have some doubt, like every human on the planet. But I think more now I'm trying to figure out how to, slow down a little bit. And I don't mean slow down the business. I think change how I work in a
Yeah.
way that's less frenetic and less chaotic and a little more intentional and a little more peaceful. And I don't feel like I'm really skilled at that. So I have some doubts that I have the skills for the new chapter I'm trying to enter here as a more peaceful worker.
Does that just come from life changes on your end, or does it come from, like, again, you said earlier, understanding your clients? You're like, hey, I can say no to more people, which means maybe I have more time for the right clients.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both of those things, and I've got a really capable team. My partner and the president of our company is running the show now, and I have to do fewer. I used to have to wear all the hats, and now I don't. And then age, and the sort of the perspective, like I said, turning 50. Anytime it's a milestone birthday, it's an opportunity for introspection and asking yourself if your life's going the way you want it to go. And I think it's a lot of different things. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to embrace a little more peace and a little slower pace. But I have been going full tilt boogie, 100 miles an hour since my earliest memories. So I'm working on developing some skill in this arena. I don't have a lot of facility with it.
That's hard to turn off, I'm assuming. Yeah.
Yeah, I know how to go all the way, or it's dead stop, like crash and burn and then rest, or go as fast as I can. But working at moderation is something I'm new to, so I'm trying to develop some skill with it.
All right. All right. Well, there you go. At least you're on the right path. All right. Here we go. Last one. How do you? Well, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna veto that, because that's similar to one of the ones we just. I'm gonna veto. I don't
Okay.
do that often, but I want to make sure we hit some good ones here. Oh, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, an actor. I wanted to be an actor. I love having people's attention on me and telling stories and telling jokes and making people laugh, and I've always loved it. I was a big ham as a kid, and I was the only girl. I have four boys living in the house, and my parents, and our big Irish Catholic kind of family. So just like, I don't know. I always wanted to do that, but like I said before, I grew up poor, and so choosing a career in theater didn't look like a very straight line out of poverty to me, and I wanted to not be hungry and and homeless. So I was good at math and science, and engineering is a good, stable, well-paying career. And for 17-year-old me, picking a college major, that looked like really the most important thing to drive the decision. So, but it's interesting because now I'm, a speaker. I get on a lot of stages doing talks on my pricing talks, and so I get to sort of, it came full circle. And I'm not an actor, but I am a performer in a way.
Wow. Have you ever done any type of acting, improv, like anything like that? Or
Not as an adult. I did a bunch in school.
okay,
It's always been something like I thought maybe someday I'll get involved in some community theater or something. It hasn't
yeah,
really, come to bear yet. I've still got kids at home, but maybe once that next chapter starts and things are a little slower at home, I'll be able to give some evenings to a community production of our town or something.
okay, awesome. That'd be fun. It's I don't know what's the theater like in Columbus. What's the
There's a
largest?
ton. There's
Is
lots of
there?
good
Oh, is
theater
there?
here.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah, that's fun then. All right, well, that's awesome. Okay, so let's transition. That was really good rapid fire, even though it wasn't as fast as I know we want to go.
Maybe just fire, not so much rapid fire.
No, that's all right. It's a ironic name, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk because obviously you're pricing like that's your thing, but I think might be helpful for people, especially if a lot of business owners that listen to this. What are some of the? Let's start out almost like put a list together, like what's their perception of pricing as it is, like what's the fears they have coming into it
Yeah.
to expose these blind spots.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say some of the mistaken beliefs or self-limiting beliefs is I'm already charging as much as I can. If I charge more, I'll lose customers or I'll lose sales volume. I'm doing the best I can in the face of market conditions. Customers doing X, competitors doing Y. Terrified of raising prices. They're afraid that the cliff is, if I raise my prices by 2%, now there's a cliff, like there is a possible range. Anybody can charge for anything. You can't, you can bake the world's best gluten-free raisin bread. You can't charge $150 a loaf for it. But where people believe that cliff is, where they're going to lose all their business, and where the cliff actually is in two very different places. So really, there's just a ton of fear-based decision making around pricing. If you line up 100 business owners or 100 salespeople, 100 people involved in sales in any way, you say, what do you love about selling and serving your customers? 0 people out of 100 would say, I cannot wait to tell them the price tag. It is the funnest part. It's like not the fun part. It's the hard
Right.
part. It's the part that most people dread. They love building relationships and being the hero and solving problems and connecting with their customers. And they don't love that part. And so even for really accomplished, successful sellers, including CEOs who've, founder-led sales departments or whatever, it tends to be an area of relatively less comfort and confidence. And so even when they're, a premium player, they're often not charging as much as they could. So you see a lot of fear-based decisions. You see not confidence, rooted in fear, not confidence, pricing not to lose, like this really defensive strategy, pricing not to lose rather than pricing to win, not putting off price increases for far too long, negotiating against ourselves, caving into price pressure against inferior competition, all that kind of, just that. And it just piles up to a lot of money that isn't sitting in our bank account, that's sitting in our customer's bank account because we got afraid and we're afraid to hold the line.
Yeah, that's I mean, one more I even thought of. Maybe it might have been in your list. It said a little differently, but I feel like a lot of folks, even founders, but also bigger businesses, they delay pricing conversations, which ultimately, they're way too late in the game. They haven't talked budget. Like they think if
Right.
I wait longer and then I
Right.
throw this massive proposal, why did they ghost me? Why didn't they?
Yeah.
But I think that's a big reason too, right?
Yeah. It's not a conversation very many people are comfortable with. And so what's interesting about that is I'm tempted to say it's something they're not very skilled at, but I don't think the real issue is skill generally. Generally, skill is not the problem with pricing. It's not to say that we can't get better at asking more questions or communicating value or handling objections or other skill based things. But the biggest obstacle is our own mindset, our own fears, our the hidden underlying obstacles of our habits, attitudes, beliefs, emotions, fears, self-limiting beliefs that stop us from executing on our skills. So we may have the skill to confidently, or that we may have the skill to, we know what to do, what to say, what process to follow, but in the moment, in the heat of battle, when the customer's threatening to buy from our competition, we won't do what we've been trained to do, or taught what we, say what we've been taught to do. We'll get in our head, we'll get in our gut, we'll feel pushy, we'll feel salesy, we'll feel weird, and we'll
Hmm.
discount.
Yeah. Well, so let's go back to that, the fear part, that mindset piece. Like, I guess maybe the thing is, and I'm assuming most people are thinking this, is like, one, how do you even set the price? Because again, like, let's say they're a business owner. Oh, I got to set the price.
Yeah.
How do you set the price when you have
This is
those fears and the
that's a
uncertainty?
big
And
question, because it's
yeah,
very different for very different, a lot, if it's different for products versus services. It's different even inside products businesses. It's different inside service businesses. I would say that if my answer is going to be pretty necessarily vague as a result, and maybe because of that, not terribly useful, but essentially, rooted in your value. What is the highest price you can charge and still have customers say yes to you? And too often people are saying, well, but my costs are X and I want to make at least this much margin. Let me say very loud and clear, your customers don't care about your margin. Your costs do not drive price, only value does. And if you're using cost to set your price, you're probably undercharging. So I don't love cost plus approaches. Another one that people want to lean heavily on is competition. Like, what is my competition charging? And this is again where I would say it depends a little bit on what you sell and who you sell to. If you're in a distribution based business where you're selling the literal exact same pens and office supplies, or the same fittings and valves or whatever as somebody else that's in your marketplace, then your ability to charge a premium is much more limited than if you're a digital marketing agency, because the comparisons are far less direct. Every case, I believe people lean too heavily on what their competition's doing. The fact of the matter is, there are winners in every industry, no matter how competitive and how commoditized. There are competitors charging more. And how are they able to do that? They're able to do that because they have created more value, number one, and usually but sometimes it's or convince the customer that they create more value.
yeah,
And so there is a premium available in every single industry under the sun. And that's why I don't love when people get too hamstrung by looking at competition, because if you're different than them, then it's not generally a terribly useful comparison. Now, it might be a data point, but let's not limit ourselves overly by that information alone. It's really rooted in the value that you deliver and the value that you're able to convince your customer that you deliver.
yeah. So when you go into organizations, what are some tells that their pricing is not correct, that they should be charging more? Are there any indicators?
The fact that the company exists. Like I've literally never entered a company that didn't have underpricing opportunities.
Oh,
Not a
really? Okay.
single one
All
ever.
right.
I just
Okay.
know it's true. I don't know where
Yeah.
it's going to be. I don't know what,
Yeah.
and I mean, so, and I don't mean to be quite so tongue in cheek, because there are some, but the true matter is, like, I don't have to know anything about, I could meet somebody later today. I'm going to an event for companies that run on EOS, and I will meet somebody there that I've never met, and I'll say, oh, what's your business? And they'll tell me, and I will be certain 1,000% before they say one thing, there is underpricing opportunity in their business. There is suboptimized price execution. There are unturned stones, and there are places that fear has limited how much they're charging. So that, I mean, to be blunt, everybody has it.
And that's just because they've set the bar that way to begin, or they're just not confident, like they're discounting too much. Like, is it a they didn't set the bar high enough to start, or they're always coming down on it, or maybe it's a
Both
mix.
are true. And I think, I mean, so let's take the second of those, because that's the sort of easier one to understand at first. Like, you got to consider that whatever, like, okay, I'm starting a brand new company tomorrow. I'm offering such and such widget. I'm going to charge $100 a piece for it. Or I'm starting a service-based business, and I'm going to charge $10,000 for this service, this such and such service. We're generally setting that number too low, for sure, because of fear, and especially in like the startup phase, as we were talking about, we're just so desperate to get business. But even once we're mature, people generally get out of the gate with too low of a number. But let's look at the rest of what happens then. So I say to you, you're interested in my service, and I tell you, oh, Brian, it's going to cost $10,000, and you go, oh, geez, I don't have that in the budget. I have 7,500 in the budget. Or you say, I sat down with somebody last week and they quoted me, 8,300 for the same service, or whatever you tell me, right? We get asymmetrical feedback from customers, meaning we get information always that our prices are too high, or we get nothing. Sometimes they just say yes, but they're never saying, really, only 10K for that service? I thought that'd be 15,000. All right. I sat with somebody last week that proposed 2,500 or 12,500 for that. We don't get the part of the feedback that is we are really too cheap. We are affordable compared to competition. We're affordable compared to their budget. We're affordable compared to what they think solving that problem is worth. We're only ever hearing we're too expensive. And so that negativity, that negative feedback starts to really work its way into our brain because we're not getting a balanced view. That's number one. Number two is something called the negativity bias, which is a concept where we as human beings focus on negative events with greater frequency and intensity than positive events. That's why, like, you can hear a kid can hear 20 loving, complimentary things, and one bully on the schoolyard says one thing about them and their confidence gets wrecked. So when we hear our prices too, you can win 20 deals without anybody batting an eye. You lose one, you're like, oh my gosh, I wonder if my prices are too high, right? We over focus on the losses, we over focus on the negative feedback. And so you pair the fact that we get almost exclusively negative feedback on our pricing and that we give that all too much weight, it causes people to discount and set the prices too low for the next thing. And it's sort of it's a downward spiral of confidence.
Do you find that's also a tell if they're winning too much?
For sure. For sure.
Right.
So a lot of times the question, like, what's your win rate? And it's funny. I had a lot of years ago, I had a software company as a client. And they had 100% renewal rate. They had never, ever lost a client in all the years they'd been selling the software. And it was this huge point of pride for them. And I was like, guys, your prices are way too low. If you aren't losing any business ever over price, if you aren't getting some price pushback, your prices are too low. So it's like, okay, 99% win rate, that's a real issue. 98% real issue. Now, you don't want it to be 3 or 6, somewhere in the middle. There's lots of factors that affect win rate, not just price. But it is sometimes, to kind of go back to your earlier question, sometimes a tell that somebody's really underpriced when they're winning, quote unquote, too much business.
Yeah. And I'm just kind of curious, being in the rooms with these folks, like the aha moment because I'm assuming you're doing the math with them. Like, well, if you charge X amount more, you don't need as many clients, and
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. So the answer to how do we do this is we keep it very simple. And this is not to insult anybody's intelligence or savvy, but they're very focused on their whole business. They're focused on growing it. They're focused on selling enough. They're focused on operational excellence. They're focused on making their next hire. And the thing almost no businesses are terribly focused on is how do we be as strategic as possible with pricing and make sure we're really getting every dollar out of every deal. And, as evidence to this, I'll offer to you that when I keynote, I ask the audience, how many of you are having sales meetings in your company? Every hand goes up. How many of you are having operational meetings in your company where cost and efficiency and waste and, all that kind of stuff, profitability around, the cost side of things is discussed? And every hand goes up. I say, how many of you are having regular strategic pricing meetings? And no hands go up, or 3 do. And it's like, okay, this is the biggest financial lever you have in your business. And I've just gotten done demonstrating this thing through this, what I call the world's simplest P&L, this really, really, really simple way to show them how dramatically much more profitable they can be with even modest price improvements. And then it's like, you're not talking about it. You're not focused on it. Let's get focused on it and do these 3 things, and away we go. So it's a lot of fun. And I'm, as you heard me sort of share in my opening, I'm an engineer, so I like to be able to measure things. So we measure at the beginning of a keynote and at the end of a keynote. We do the same thing with our training programs. We measure at the beginning and the end, how confident are you about your pricing power? And you see a meaningful, statistically significant shift in people's confidence through, one of our programs. And I say that not to pat myself on the back for our programs, but just to show you how much the confidence is actually the key to winning here. Because then once the confidence is there, it's like Dorothy always had the ruby slippers to go home. She just didn't know she could, right? It's like we've given people the confidence to act on the pricing power they already have because of the value they already deliver. And all of a sudden, the profitability jumps up by 10 points or 25 points or 11 points or 4. And nothing changed in their product, nothing changed in their service, nothing changed in their value, nothing changed in their quality. What changed was their confidence to communicate it and defend it.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing when you see that show up in the numbers like that.
Well, it comes back what you mentioned from like the negative kind of connotation is when you take that approach and it's always like, oh my God, they're objecting for me. They don't like me. I have to discount. A competitor's doing this. They're going to leave. We have all this
All
stuff
the
instead
threats,
of,
yeah.
right. Instead of, well, we have a value. We serve something. We serve our clients well. We do. And if you think in that optimistic, positive attitude, right, that certainly helps you stand your ground a little bit more as well.
100%. I think one of the problems is it sometimes feels in the seller side of the seat like we don't have power because the customer makes a decision about where, from whom to buy. And they're considering you and they may be considering your competition. And it feels like they have all the power and we have none because they're writing the checks, they're cutting the POs. But the reality is they need your products and services. They're going to buy them from someone. Why not from you? Do you not believe in what you sell? Do you not solve a real problem for your customers? Do you not deliver excellence in the form of your products and services? Like, I think it's a false belief when we are in those conversations and customers are trying to beat us up on price to feel like they have all the power and we have none. We have power in so much as our products and services solve a real problem for them when we have real value. Now, that doesn't mean, again, even if you have the best, product on the planet, doesn't necessarily mean you can charge anything you want. There's still a competitive range that you tend to fall in. But as soon as customers start beating us up on price and pushing back and comparing us to competition or saying that's outside the budget or any of the other 73,000 ways they negotiate with us, we start to feel powerless and afraid, and we don't want to lose the deal. And so the most expedient way out of all that pain is just to throw a discount at it. But it's costing companies tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars just because of fear. It's reasonable and natural to feel fear. We're human beings. Fear is part of life. Fear is certainly part of selling. It's just a terrible reason not to make money.
What's the coaching opportunity, I guess? So let's say that objection comes up or, they're battling you on price or whatever. Is there something like a quick win someone can have?
Oh, sure. Let me try to give you something very like put your hands around it. I mean, there's a lot, right? But for example, so like here's what I would invite people to consider. It's a reframe. It's a paradox. When a customer beats you up on price, they're giving you a buying signal. I'm going to say it again because it doesn't sound true. When customers beat you up on price, they're giving you a buying signal. If I said to you, Brian, that's outside my budget, or can you sharpen your pencil, or can you match this competitive price, or any of that other stuff, I am telling you I'm interested in buying from you. Because if I had no interest in buying from you, I wouldn't bother doing that. Human beings have no interest in wasting their time, and so customers wouldn't bother beating you up on price if they were just going to go buy from the other guy. They'd just go do that. So when they give you price pressure and they beat you up and they're trying to hammer you down, they're giving you a buying signal that says, I have buying interest in your product or service from you. Not unlimited. We can't get, this is not a moment for arrogance, but it's a moment for confidence and it's a moment for questions. So then we can start to ask what's behind the buying signal. So if I said to you, hey, so-and-so down the street is, 10% less than you, if you'll match their price, I'll buy from you. If you say, okay, well, first of all, you say to yourself, this is a buying signal. They'd rather buy from me than my competitor. That's interesting. Then you can use that for questions like, okay, let's just, I want to make sure I come back to you with a proposal that really meets all your needs. Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions first? Yeah, no problem. If we could erase, just like let's just pretend for a second that the prices of these two proposals were identical. Which one would you choose? Oh, I'd go with you, Brian. Oh, okay. Can you help me understand why that is? What it is about what we've proposed? Our products and services, our team, our approach. Can you help me understand why this one makes the most sense for you? Because I want to make sure I don't bring back anything that's going to miss the mark on anything that's really critically important to you. And then when you listen to that answer, you might find out that there's absolutely no need to price match at all because they really, the other guy can't do what you can do. Now, customers aren't idiots. They're not going to be like, well, I need it by next week and the other guys can't ship until August, but I still hope you'll discount. Like they're not going to trot out all their pricing power and lay it on your plate. But starting the dialogue to try to understand what's behind the buying signal by asking better questions. Don't jump right to solving a price problem. Find out what's behind the buying signal. So number one, price objections are a buying signal. And number two, ask questions to understand what's behind the buying signal. those are big unlocks for people, very common.
I wanted to go back because you mentioned something about when you're doing your keynotes, you asked the question about the pricing meetings and stuff. Is there something they should, again, they had a meeting today and they're like, oh, Casey had a good idea. We're going to do a pricing meeting. Okay,
What the
what are we
heck
going
do
to
we
talk
do
about?
in a pricing meeting?
What's that?
What the heck do we do in a pricing meeting?
Yeah, is there anything to help, like,
Sure.
to
I mean,
jumpstart that?
I have a sort of an unsatisfying answer, but then I'll add a little to it. The unsatisfying answer is it almost doesn't matter. And by that, I mean the very simple fact, like lock yourself. And if you're a solopreneur, it's you. If you got a team, maybe it's your senior leaders. You lock yourself in a room for an hour with a whiteboard. Say like, let's talk about our pricing. Let's pick it apart a little bit. Let's play devil's advocate with our current pricing approach and structure. Let's where do we have opportunity? Where are we winning too many deals? With large OEMs on the West Coast, our win rates have ticked up over 90%. Well, maybe we have an opportunity to raise prices. So it can be kind of data driven like that. It can also be a lot more general. Like, it's less about getting into the weeds of, hey, we have a new opportunity and what do we want to price it? It's more as a business, let's pick our head up out of the weeds and look around and make sure we're still pointed at the mountain. And where might we be underpriced? You can give a fun way to do this is to kind of like make it like a debate team thing. Like you two are arguing that our prices are too high and you two are arguing that our prices are too low. Put your best arguments together for your case. And then you get together. I mean, like just looking at it and talking about it with a discerning eye, like inspecting and interrogating our own beliefs and habits is most of it. Like, are we stuck in a rut because this is how we've always priced? We've always, 25, as long as it's above 25 GP, we're happy, right? Or whatever rules of thumb, whatever autopilot approaches we have to our pricing, let's really take a hard look at those. That's like, it doesn't need to be a lot more fancy than that. Now, for companies that have, are much further down the pricing excellence journey and they've done all the low hanging fruit, there's some more sophisticated things you can look at in a pricing steering committee or a pricing, when you're really developing your pricing discipline as a function of your business, there's some more sophisticated stuff to do. But to start with, just start talking about it, just start looking at it. Unbelievable good will come from that.
You're basically just lifting up the carpet and shining a light on some of the things.
This thing we never look at, or we only look at it in January when it's price increase time, or when we have a brand new big customer opportunity coming along. It's like, let's just step back dispassionately and take a look at our pricing and really look at it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's not getting focused on in most businesses. I can tell you that much.
All right, so let's end the conversation on this. So I always like to, kind of being the Just Get Started podcast, right? More of an action item. Now, this could be around pricing, take around meditation. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's your show. What would you tell people today to take the first step to get started? Any action item, anything that you would encourage them to do?
Yeah. And I'll tie it to a little bit to the answer I just gave about the pricing meeting. I would say, if you're listening to this and you think, I wonder if I have any pricing opportunity, I assumed I didn't, but now maybe this is making me think a little differently, or I'm just getting started. I'm not ready to raise prices, or we just raised prices last, April, and I think our prices are fine, or our margins are pretty good. Whatever complacency causes you not to look at your pricing, I would say get uncomplacent, pull out your calendar, find an hour in the next week, or if your next week's vacation week, find the week after, find an hour in the next couple of weeks that you can sit quietly, not with your phone, not with your computer, just a whiteboard or a notebook, and play that game I just talked about. Like, your job were to build the case that your business is not charging enough. What evidence would you gather? What if you had to go argue tomorrow in front of a court that your business is underpricing its products and services? Put together that case. Spend the hour doing that. And if you do not identify through the course, and it's just a thought exercise, you don't have to raise any prices. Just commit yourself to your job is to make, it's just like on a debate team. Sometimes you're assigned a case you don't even believe in, but you still got to build the case. Build the case that you're underpriced. And then if you don't have some direct, actionable pricing opportunities as a result of that, I would be positively shocked. But you get a hold of me on LinkedIn and I'll send you a free book.
Well, there you go. Boom. I love that. Well, that's a good tie because you have the book that came out last year. How's that going, by the way? I'm
Great,
excited.
great.
You're an
Yeah, I
author.
didn't know what to
That's your
expect,
first.
to be
That's
honest
your
with
first
you.
book, right?
So, I wasn't sure if anybody was ever going to read it, but yeah, people are reading it, so it's good.
Yeah. First book, right?
First book, yeah,
First book. Okay. And you
yeah.
got to now. There's a teaser on your website that you're like writing a second one,
Well,
maybe.
yeah, I have 3 additional books started in my head, like a
Okay.
outline forming for 3 additional books. The one I'm probably the most kind of, I would say I'm excited about it is a misnomer because exciting writing a book is hard. It's really hard, but price increases is a thing that most businesses, most business owners, most sales leaders, it's not, they don't know how to do it. They don't like it. They don't, if I said to you, how confident are you that your price increase decisions and execution and communications and follow through is going to be an A plus? I don't think any business owners feel confident about that. So, a book about how to do price increases well, how to time them correctly, how to communicate them correctly, how to prepare your team for them correctly, what price increase to set. A little of the tactics and strategy of really good price increases. I know it's not a particularly sexy topic necessarily, but it generates a whole ton of money for your business, and that's pretty sexy. So,
Sure. Yeah,
I think that'd
absolutely.
be
That's
good.
needed.
But I mentioned the book, and thank you for allowing me to mention it. But I didn't say the name. It's called Fearless Pricing. So anybody who wants
Yeah.
to make more money, check it out.
And then
There's
LinkedIn's kind of the watering hole that you're spending your time with
That's where I
most
put a
probably.
lot of I put a lot of free content out, a lot of videos. I write a blog on our website. So I'm a big fan of and offering at every price point, right? So I've got for a lot of free resources for people who are either not ready to ever be a client or not ready to be a client of ours, or who they just want some free stuff. Great, we got free stuff. We got a book for you can get the Kindle version for less than $10, and then certainly we have ways we help clients who want to hire us. But I am a bit of a zealot for this stuff. I am a very passionate believer that every business on the planet should be paid fairly for their excellence, and I can't work with every business on the planet. So that's why we have the book as a means for scale and reach, and then a lot of the free resources for people that aren't in a position to hire us or it doesn't make sense for them, but I still want them to have the access to the knowledge I've amassed over 25 years of geeking out about this one very
Yeah.
specific thing.
Yeah. It's kind of like the farmer's insurance, right? You know a thing or two because you've seen a thing or two.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I want to share it and I want to help people.
that's awesome. Casey, thank you so much for coming on. This was a lot of fun and look forward to talking with you soon.
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.